and welcome. My name is Dibereth Winarbenlow and I'm a blogger and photographer for Second Life. Today we're going to be looking at how to create images that have rain effects in them. There's two kinds of effects we're going to look into. The harder one is this one here, which is having a rain effect on your face or your avatar's skin, basically. And then the easier one, which is just putting rain into a backdrop. So this is just a green screen image, and if you take these away, it's just a green screen image on a background. So what we want to do is we want to use blending modes to take images that are on black backgrounds and overlay them on our image. So for this one, it's pretty easy to do. So what I did for this is I created fog in the background just to give it a little bit of depth, and then I added fog to the foreground so that it looked like I was standing in the middle of the fog. So if I took this off of screen and put it on normal, you can see that the actual image that we used is this. So let me put this on normal. Okay, so I took black and white images and I used blending modes to screen the image to make it into an overlay. So if you have a photo that has black and white, the white parts will remain when you use the screen blending mode, and the black parts will disappear. If the image is not black enough in certain areas, you will see little lines, which actually you can see in this one. So let me go back to the screen mode. So here, you can see here, because it's not quite dark enough, there are some like fine lines, and you can erase them a little bit, put a little low opacity eraser over it just to soften those lines up. But overall, this is like a really easy way to get the rain effect. So the rain parts here and here have created some depth. So what I always do with a green screen photo is I try and add depth by putting some behind me and some in front of me. So the rain that is behind me, let's take away this fog and this front rain. The rain that is behind me is a smaller rain because we want to give the appearance that it is in the background. So I'm going to take a image like this, which is just blurred rain in the back. Since I have a depth of field image, I can use blurred rain to keep that depth of field blurred background look. And you don't have to, I mean, you can just put regular rain, up to you. So here you can see I have this fine rain overlay. The white parts will remain, the black parts will go away when I go to my blending mode here and I change it to screen, because anything black goes away, anything white stays when you use the blending mode. And then in the front, I want to have a rain that is larger because I want it to give the appearance of being closer to the camera. So what I did is I took a rain that had large raindrops and I screened that. So same process, you find a black and white image that's an overlay and then you go to blending mode and screen. So normally it looks like this. And I erased my face out of it because I didn't want the rain in front of my face. Basically you just clean up those images. So I have the rain here, I have the rain in the back. So I have a depth effect here. In the front you can see the big rain and in the back the tiny rain. And then I added fog as well just for a little bit of depth, but you could really have done this just like this. So how do we make something like this? Well, really all we do is we go to Google and we go and find rain overlays. So I have found this rain overlay. I'm going to take it here, the image itself. I'm going to right click and copy the image. And then I'm going to head over to my image, and this is a small rain, so I'm going to paste it behind my image. So I'll hit Control V to paste it. I'm going to hit Control T to open my transform tool. Then I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift and drag the corner so that it makes it bigger uniformly behind me. And click it when you're done. Okay, so now I have this rain effect behind me. It's a smaller rain, so that's the rain I'll put behind my avatar because it's further away. And then I'll go to my blending mode here, and I'm going to click screen, and I have rain. Now since my image is blurred back here, chances are I'm going to want to blur my rain as well so that it matches my depth of field. So I'll go to filter up here, blur, lens blur, and then I already have the settings that I want. I think they may be the default settings, not 100% sure, but I'll just click OK. And then it's going to apply that lens blur filter, and that rain will look blurred just like the background. So it blends in a little. Then I can go back to my rain, search, see if I can't find some bigger raindrops. So you just kind of scroll through until you find something that might work for you. So here you can even see that they have some that look like you're looking down at the rain. Let's see. The hardest part really is just finding the right overlay for you. So when I need big rain, this is okay, this will do. So this is bigger rain, so I can put this in front, especially once I make it larger. This may be slightly too small. It doesn't matter if it's, let me put this in front of my avatar. It doesn't really matter if it's a smaller image when you resize it bigger, just because it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's super pixelated, then you may run into some issues. This one I think though is going to be okay. So I've resized it the same way. So what I did is I just hit Control T, Alt Shift, and dragged it big. And then I click OK. Now I can screen this, go to my blending mode and screen, and I have rain. And since the rain in front is not necessarily going to be blurred, since the depth of field only blurs the background, you could keep this way, maybe add a slight blur to it. This one is a little bit pixelated. You might want to find something that's a little more high resolution, but it doesn't have to be super high definition, because it's not like you're trying to make rain replicas with the little drops. So that is a super easy way to just add rain to your photo. Now this type of a photo is much more difficult, so I'm going to try and explain this as briefly as possible while still explaining the basics of it. So this type of effect here, and let me zoom in, this type of effect requires a ton of work, to be honest, and a ton of layers. So if you want this to look good, you will have to spend quite a bit of time on it. So you can see here I have all kinds of wet effects and drips. Okay, so let me pull this apart here. View, fit on screen. Okay, so this particular image required a ton of layers out of me. So these are my overlay layers, and these are my transparent drop layers. So I actually bought let me minimize this real quick. I bought a long time ago, I'm not sure where, I bought these droplets. So you can find some droplets to purchase, transparent droplets to purchase, and use them as part of your repertoire, so to speak. But also having overlays will help a lot. So let's go back here. Now if I take my group of overlays and I show you what they look like before screening, it's a bunch of files that are just sort of layered together. Let me turn off my transparency there. So bunch of files layered together that you screen to create the look. So basically you fit your overlays to your image as best as possible and create this effect through the screen mode. Let me go back to screen. Okay, so I've used, let's see, I have used, oh, it doesn't want to let me zoom. I used a splash layer here on the nose. I used droplets all over the place. Splashes around the hair because that's how rain falls. A lot of the times, basically you want to just look at how rain might fall on a person and then try and replicate that with the use of overlays. So what you can do is, so this is the original without anything on it. So I already had rain in the background because I shot it in a rainy area, but if I didn't, then you could use the effects from the previous image that we did. Now to add the effects to the face, what I want to do is I want to go back to my searching for overlays, and I want to find some overlays that are like raindrops. So what I did to help me guide my way is I went and clicked on the tools section in the Google image search, and I looked only for images that have black, because I want an overlay that I can screen on my image. So you'll find images like this perhaps where they have the sort of droplet effect, or where it looks kind of like it's on a window or something like that, where the water seems to be running down. So here's another good one, water running down. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to copy this image and I'm going to paste, I want to paste it on top. I'm going to paste this on here, and we're just going to sort of adjust it to the face. We're going to need to do a lot of layers, but we can at least start with something. So I've got this overlay, and I'm going to go to my blending modes, and I'm going to screen it so that it covers my face. So now what I want to do is maybe erase some parts of it. Let me make it so that it covers my whole face. And I'm going to erase only the parts of it that are fairly far out from my face. So like in my hair area, most of that I will take out. You might leave a little bit if it looks like it's meant to be there. Like, see here in the corner, it kind of looks like the water is dripping. It's something you just have to look with your eyes and see if you think that it looks like it's natural. The main thing here is trying to make it look natural. Okay, so now I have a little bit of weirdness here on the chin where it looks like it's in a straight line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control T, go to my transform tool, and then I'm going to warp it by clicking this button here. This is the warp button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the warp tool so that it starts to shape this to my face. And you have to be a little bit careful with this because it can cause pixelization, and it can make your texture stretch. So you have to be careful what you do with this. You want to make sure that you do not overdo your stretching of your textures, because you don't want to end up with something that looks unnatural where the rivulets of rain have twisted or the pixelation has occurred. So basically just be careful with it. Alright, so this looks a little bit better. I maybe want to extend this down slightly so that it goes over the chin. And you can even erase this a little bit if you want to, and you can erase parts of it. So if you think something doesn't look right, you can erase those parts of it. Okay, so we've got a nice little, this looks a little weird, too white. We have a nice little bit of rain on the face now. See, that looks pretty natural already, and we haven't even done a whole lot to it. So here, this hard edge, I'm going to erase some of that with a low flow on my eraser so that I don't overdo it. So I'm going to go maybe like 10, 9, and I'm just going to sort of lighten those edges up a little so that they look less hard. Just erase some parts of that. So that's a good image, and I could maybe even duplicate this. So right click and duplicate this, and I could drag it down to the throat and maybe even just use it there. And then I'll hit Control T and try and warp that sort of towards the throat. And just sort of make it. And I've done a little bit of a bad job of warping this, but it still looks pretty good. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, because these are starting to look a little too white and not too natural, I'm going to reduce the fill of them so that they're a little bit lighter. So I'll take both of these and reduce the fill just a little bit so that they're a little bit transparent. It makes them look a little more natural. Then I want to add maybe some splashes. So I'm just going to find some kind of a splash. Splash. Let's try water splash. And then you will find some that are for pay, which you could do, or you will find some oftentimes that are for royalty free or part of tutorials and things like that. So basically just look for a water splash that will work for your thing. Let me try a rain splash actually. That might work better. Let's see. So rain splashes, we've got some rain splashes here. So let's see. Here's a good rain splash. So we'll take this rain splash, copy the image. We don't need it to be very big because we are only doing small parts of details. So I can take this, let's say I want to add a splash to my nose. So that's where rain might drop and splash. So I'm going to hover it over the area, like my tip of my nose. And then I'm going to change my blending mode to screen again. So now I've got a little, I got a little bit of a splash on my nose. So now it looks like the water has hit my face and splashed. And then what I can do is I can actually use that all around my hair to make splashes by dragging that over to duplicate, or you can also just right click and duplicate or hit Control J. So then I'm going to want to move this towards my hair to create splash effects, and you may need to reduce the opacity of it or the fill of it. You may even need to erase some of this right there. Now I've started creating splash effects. So this is where it starts to get into lots of layers, because now I'm going to be duplicating. I hit Control J to duplicate that layer, and now I'm going to be trying to make the splashes go all around my head, because that is how rain occurs. So I'm going to hit Control J again, make another layer, and you just repeatedly are going to be making these layers on your picture. So this will create an effect like this, where I have all of these splashes around my hair. And you'll add similar things around the rest of your hair, as far as having water effects. So you can see here I have lots of water effects, lots of splashes that I added to create this effect. So I would take perhaps let's see, rain drops. And we can put some raindrops on our hair perhaps. So we'll find a good image of raindrops. Let's see. It's a little too... Again, the whole hard part of this is really just finding the right overlays. Let's see. You don't want to use something that is copywritten. Let's see, white water. Let's just try something like this. You'll want to take a little bit more care in selecting your images for this, but I don't want you guys to have to sit here for an hour while I try and find the perfect overlay for hair. So we'll just go with what we can do. So I'll resize that a little. I'll change my blending mode to screen. Of course, when I resize using the Control T transform tool. So now I have this overlay. It's a little bit much, but it works. So I'll erase some of these drops, and I'm going to change my fill a little bit. Let's see. So it starts to give me sort of the wet look of the hair, and then I can just duplicate it, drag it up here, and you just keep duplicating it through whatever means you like and just adding it to the hair areas. And you can just erase the parts that you don't want. So if I don't want it on my forehead, I can erase that. Oh, let's put this here. If I don't want it on my forehead or wherever, just erase it. And you just keep doing that until you cover the areas that you have a need for. So that is the basic part of creating the rain effects. All you do is you find some cool overlays for rain, and you overlay them, and you arrange them so that they wrap around the areas that you want them to wrap around. So let me make another group here and drag these up into it. Let's group pull these in here so you can see what I'm doing next. Okay, so the other part of this is that I like to add realistic drops to my images like this. So these are just water drops that are super realistic and they create realistic effects. So what I did is I bought some that would create this effect for me. So I can copy, these are PNG, so they have no background, or they were originally PNG. I dragged them into a Photoshop layer. So I can copy this, oh, wrong one, and then I can go in here and I can paste my droplet, resize it, Control T, Alt Shift, drag that down a little bit, and I can add it to wherever I want. So if I want this to be up here, I can make a droplet for my hair. Now this one has a little bit of a drop shadow, which I would like to erase because it looks a little awkward. So I'm going to just clean up my droplet. Clean up that. So now it adds droplets to, for instance, the hair. Since when you're in the rain, you would end up with hair that had droplets. So here you can see I've added droplets here. And they don't have to be super perfect because chances are someone's not going to look that close to them. So you can see that I put these droplets on some of the edges of my hair. And that creates a little bit more of a realistic effect. Then you look for where else might the droplets come off of my face, and you would think probably the chin. Just think about if you ran water down your face, where would water start to drip from? So obviously the chin is a good place to put them. And then I also put a few of the droplets as overlays on the hair. Not quite overlays since it's just a PNG image. So I just put the realistic droplets around to add a little bit more realism to the effect. You don't have to do this. You could easily have just done this kind of work with overlays to create a similar effect. I just thought that the realistic droplets add a little bit of realism. Detail is really important to me, so whenever I do this I try and make it look as realistic as possible. I think about what would really happen if I was standing in the rain, but attractively. So this is a good way to create these kinds of images. This sort of image is a lot more work than this sort of image here, so it is important to understand that it will take time, and it is a learning curve. You will have to spend some time trying to figure out where is best to put what and if it looks natural. When in doubt, I would suggest that you keep your opacity fairly low to prevent the sort of white appearance. A lot of times overlays problem is that they start to look too white. They don't look like real rain, which wouldn't really be white on the face. So you can see that I made these fairly light. They are not super dark white because I lowered the opacity on them so that they don't do that. So that is it. That is how you create rain images, both with backgrounds and with your actual avatar, to put rain on your avatar's skin. Keep in mind, just think about how it would be in real life and try and replicate that with the use of layers and overlays by using the screen mode for your blending mode. Thank you for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.